Hey guys, welcome to the Refined Savage. Today on the show we have Sean Urquhart. Sean's a top-level pro Highland Games athlete. It was a great conversation. Really had a good time sitting down with him. Check him out. He's got some interesting takes on the whole Highland Games scene and on physical education as a whole. He's a physical education teacher out here in North Ridgeville, Ohio, so check him out. Mr. Urquhart, good evening.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. Put that microphone right up in front of your face.
All
I
right,
always get yelled at for bad microphone placement in these because some people either too loud or too soft. So how'd the season go this year?
Started out really good. Last year was my rookie season, so this is my second year competing as a pro.
Yeah.
And I think, physically better probably last year as a thrower. My numbers were better, but I was a mental wreck. Just super nervous, and I think I just...
Were you nervous just because it was your first year pro? You were just...
First year pro, and then there was quite a few games I followed some big names. Like I remember I went to Detroit, and I had to throw behind McKim the whole day.
Yeah.
And so they had to pull the tape in like 30 or 40 feet every throw. I'm like, oh, shit, this sucks.
It's like they're reeling in a big fish or something every time you throw.
Every time.
Detroit's tough because that's... there's not that many spots, and everybody likes that games because the money's good, and you only throw 5 events. So it's not that bad of a day. And I remember... Kurt was really good about bringing in new talent, but keeping the old guys in there too. And when I was throwing there, you always had like Harrison Bailey and Ryan Vieira, and McKim was there, and Andy Vincent was always there. So that was always a great games up there. They took care of you.
Unfortunately, every time I go to Detroit, I throw usually one of my worst games of the season every year.
Yeah,
is at Detroit. I don't know why. I don't know if I'm just trying too hard because there's 5 events and you gotta place well in all the events.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I usually.
Did you throw there as an amateur too?
Just 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went there 2 years ago as an amateur, and then Kurt said, "Yeah, come on back next year as a pro." So I went back as a pro. Took dead last.
Yeah.
Super bad. But yeah, like last year, I took last a lot last year. I did really bad. I had a bunch of PRs, but.
Well, that
I didn't put anything together in a game.
Yeah, and
they weren't all in the same time frame or whatever.
When I turned pro, it was something you had to deal with because you went from being like I was like 3rd or 4th that they used to have now they have it again at the East Coast Amateur Championship. So I thought I was hot shit, and I knew when I turned pro I was going to take a couple years where I was going to get my ass kicked, and it might be 7-8 years of me getting my ass kicked before. I was able to put something together, and that's kind of hard to swallow when you're used to winning a lot. But,
it was hard. It was an eye opener for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd you do as an amateur? Did you get to do like north south or anything like that?
As an AM, I did pretty well as an AM. I think I threw for 6 years as an AM. So I took first at East Coast Championships 1 year. I went to Minnesota Amateur Championships 3 times. I think I placed second once and fourth once. The other time we won't talk about. It was one of those days.
Yeah, right.
I did north-south. I competed 1 year as a teammate. This next year I was invited back by Nate Parker, but my wife was due with our second child like a week or so after. So I just said, no, I can't miss that. There's no way. I couldn't forgive myself.
That's true. Yeah, down there throwing and anything could happen early or anything like that.
Yeah, so I think I declined that year, and then she gave birth like 2 weeks later. And then the final year before the year I guess I went pro, I was named North Captain.
Oh, okay.
So I've done a few things as an amateur that are pretty fun.
Well, it's a good pedigree, and those are big games too. It kind of sets you up. We didn't have that many big championship games when I was throwing, and I think it sets you guys up so much better to be ready when there's money on the line and there's big names. When you're used to doing those big all we had was East Coast Championships, and that was it. But this is pre-internet. We were still getting invited. We would get this packet every year of your rankings in every event. So it was like the NASGA forum. Yeah. So you would you would sign up for it. It was the NASGA newsletter, and it would come out once a year at the end of the season, and it would give you your best throws in every event and how you fared. Like, so I was the 15th best weight for distance thrower, and I was the 20th best sheaf tosser. It was crazy. But you waited for that to come out every year. Now it's instantaneous. But that's how you got invited to East Coast Championships, and then you placed top 4 or 5 at East Coast. They just expected you to turn pro. and there wasn't much of a, you didn't have much of a say. But we really wanted to turn pro. Nobody wanted to stick around in the amateur ranks. I think there was more opportunity for us back then. But
I think when I was an amateur, like going pro really wasn't one of my priorities. So I know like a lot of guys are like, how fast can I get through this and get pro? And for me, like I don't have a throwing background, so I was just having fun throwing. Competed a lot with Chris Rusher, or Crush as he calls himself.
Yeah.
And he would just every time I saw him, he would just be yelling at me.
How'd you hook up with Rusher?
Pro? Where?
Because he's from Michigan, right?
He's from Michigan. He lives down in southeastern Ohio now, almost in West Virginia.
See, I didn't even know that.
Close to, I believe it's Belpre, Ohio.
Okay.
So my first year competing, they did the North American, what is it? North American Highlander, the NAHA, I think it was.
Oh, yeah, right. Was that Steve McCracken's
McCracken
games?
had a game out in Jackson, Ohio, I believe. Mm-hmm. So I went to that, and he showed up. And it was his first game back after a long layoff. And he needed some people to compete against at the end to try to get some points onto the database and things like that.
Right.
Just wanted to get some extra throws in because we only did, I think, 3 Highland Game events. So I stayed after with him because it was only my second game I've ever done. And he was teaching me some stuff, and we started talking, and then I ran into him a few more times over the years.
Yeah.
So yeah, he taught me a lot. He always wanted me to come down to Belpre, Ohio. It's about a 3-hour drive.
Yeah, it's a haul.
Spend the weekend down there and practice, and I never did. It's hard to drive somewhere to practice when I can just walk out my back patio door.
Or you could have called me because I live like 20. I didn't even know you were pro until like last year.
I know.
I used to travel a little with Rusher.
He married my wife and I. He was our our officiant. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Chris was an interesting cat because he was very super religious, and I am as far away from that as possible. So, he used to, I don't know how he is now if he's loosened up a little bit, but I used to curse and. Oh, yeah. He's
still pretty
not
strict.
Like that at all, and so we had he was always trying to bring me over to the light. We had a lot of literal come to Jesus moments with Chris over the years.
I know he AD'd a few years down in Belpre, a game. I don't know if it's still going on now. I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 years that it occurred.
Yeah.
I remember one year he would have the meetings before the games would start, and we'd say our prayer, and he'd talk to us about our conduct. And these weren't like big festival games, so we didn't have much of a crowd watching us, but he was very much about conducting yourself well, and being respectful and having manners. And Adam Brazina had just moved back to Ohio, and his manners were a little bit rough.
Yeah, Adam's a little rough. Yeah.
So he had a talking to.
That always sketched me out, because they just assume, and I don't know if you're a religious guy or not, but they just always assume that we're all going to go over and say this prayer and hold hands and put our heads down and pray to Jesus. And it's like, man, we always did it. We're respectful, but there's guys out there who may not just be not religious, they may be a whole other faith in general, but you're expected to go over and hold hands and pray to Jesus every time we start one of these games, which is always weird. There's only a few athletic directors that would do that, and it wasn't even I don't think there was any thought of that put into it. It was just like, well, I'm religious, we're all religious, we're all just going to talk and do this. And I think when you get one of those ancient sports like this that are very family oriented, that's not out of the question. That's just the way these old guys roll sometimes.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah. Are you a religious guy yourself, or?
I don't know. I'm kind of like in limbo right now. I was raised pretty Catholic.
Yeah, me too.
Went to Sunday school every single Sunday morning. As soon as Sunday school was over, we'd go over to church and we'd have mass because they were next door. And then when mass is over, we'd go over to the gym the church had, and we'd have our pancake Sunday breakfast with the church. So you
were deep in
every Sunday. I remember my dad would take us. It was my dad, and then I was the oldest, and I had 2 younger brothers, and we'd just be racing out the house every morning. My dad's like shaving his face as we drive to church, and always late.
Yeah.
But that was every Sunday, and then I don't know. I went to Catholic high school. I went to Cincinnati Moeller High School.
Wow.
But I didn't feel very religious there.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Cincinnati Moeller they're a powerhouse. They're a football factory. I don't know how the other sports were, but
yeah, football. I know baseball, wrestling, men's volleyball, basketball. I mean, they were in the
Did you
state
play
tournament.
sports in high school?
I played football and baseball.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you were part of that machine.
I did for a while. I ended up transferring later. Almost my junior year, I transferred to Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy.
Okay.
So it was a much smaller school. But yeah, I played football and baseball. I played, both ways in football. Never sat out any plays. In baseball, I was pretty successful in baseball. I ended up making All Ohio junior year. All City League, that sort of stuff. Played in the All Ohio senior baseball tournament up at Ohio State in my senior year. So.
Did you end up going to college?
I did. I went to the University of Toledo.
I did too for a while. Yes, a Rocket.
Yes.
Where did you stay? Where were you at?
Parks Tower.
Okay, see,
13th
Parks
floor.
Tower had just gotten built when I got there, so I was in Carter East. So I was like,
I had friends in Carter.
Butted up right against the shitty neighborhood. No air conditioning. It was brutal in that place.
Yeah, well, Carter was nice because they had all the back doors, so you could just sneak in without the ADs knowing.
Right.
And you could just go drink with your buddies.
Right, yeah.
And
I remember.
Parks Tower, there was one way in, and if it was after hours, you had to check in, and there was none of that drinking going on.
That's brutal. Yeah. I can remember my RA coming to my room because my roommate, who I wasn't even friends with, it was one of these things where they just stuck you with a roommate.
Uh-huh.
And he was passed out drunk, naked on a toilet. And I can't remember his name, but we used to call him Green Teeth because he had one of those fucked up brown, green like lines across his teeth that some people get. And he was on the men's soccer team. He came to me in the middle of the night, and I'd been drinking all night. And the RA knocks on my door, and I get up, and he's like, "Hey, so-and-so's in the bathroom on the toilet naked." I said, "I don't give a fuck. Go get him. You're the RA. I don't know this guy." But yeah. Toledo was great. I was just up there to interview a professor a couple months back, and it changed a lot. There's a lot of new buildings
building a ton of stuff.
Yeah, I didn't recognize half the buildings on campus.
I think I graduated in 2009, and I probably wouldn't recognize it either.
Yeah,
I haven't been back since then.
University Hills is still there.
Yeah,
old apartments.
Yep. Yeah,
that was where a lot of my friends live, so we hung out there a lot at U Hills.
Okay.
That's funny. So you didn't have any throwing background at all, huh?
No, I taught myself on YouTube. I watched.
It's amazing, isn't it?
A lot of old videos, and I just whatever you guys were doing, I just went out and I tried to mimic the best that I could, and eventually, I started picking things up here and there. I'd go to a game, and somebody would say, "Hey, you need to do this differently," so I'd go practice that one cue.
Right.
Or I'd go on NASGA. And Jake Sullivan or somebody would be writing out paragraph upon paragraph technique and things like that. Craig Smith posted a lot of stuff, and I just absorbed everything. I just spent hours. My wife would be so pissed because I would have spent hours watching videos of throws because I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Right. I mean, did you get like a little addiction to it where it became?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I would do if I wasn't throwing or lifting, and this is before I had kids. I would just be watching videos of throws.
Yeah.
That's all I did, or research.
It starts getting in your head. You can see it all the time.
Yeah.
I could do it right now. I can pull up videos of Ryan Vera in my head and I can picture everything he did because I'd watched that video so many times.
I bought the training video.
Right. The VP Productions.
It was horrible. But I would just watch that on repeat on my laptop. I'd sit in my room and just watch it over and over and over again.
That's all we had. It came in I think there was 2 VHS tapes. I think it was like Stones and Weights and Hammers, and then the other one was like Caber, Sheaf, Weight for Height or something. Mm-hmm. And with that horrible yoga music they had playing in it.
Only one track.
Over and over and over again for like 3 hours on each video. But that's all. We didn't have YouTube, so
yeah,
VHS tape over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some people on there that technically you look at them and go, ooh, I don't want to throw like that. But they were throwing like Harry McDonald, who was a giant Canadian, but you don't want to mimic his technique ever, because it was horrible. But he would throw, 85 feet in the weight, and he was just on that video in case you needed it. So that was all we had for that. Yeah. That was a great when that came out. That was such a great resource because otherwise you would maybe get a video of a guy, when you happen to be competing with him. But some of these guys, they were on the West Coast or they were in Australia, and you never got to see them.
Yeah.
Then what games? How'd you end up in the games? Like, how did you end up getting involved?
So my grandma and grandpa Urquhart up in Detroit, they live in Farmington Hills, which is right next to Livonia. Yeah. So we would go and watch the St. Andrews games, and I was kind of getting into photography a little bit, so I went and watched 2010. think was a year, and I just sat in the stands the
I was
entire
there.
day. Yeah, you were there, and I just took a ton of pictures, and I just really enjoyed watching the throws. I mean, I think it was Craig Smith, Harrison Bailey, Dave Barron, Dan McKim, KO, possibly Chafin, Steiger was there. So I mean, it was some really big names, and I didn't know who you guys were.
Right.
In fact, I knew nothing about the Highland Games. And here I am watching, world class, like top 10 level athletes.
Yeah.
And I had no idea, but I just watched, and I just went home that day. I'm like, you know what? Next year I'm competing.
I love it.
I don't care how bad I do. I'm going to compete. And there was a game in Akron, Ohio the next year. I think I bought my kilts like a couple months in advance. I bought some sore next piece of equipment so I could train the weights, and I had no clue what the hell I was doing, but I entered the B class, and I ended up winning 4 out of like the 6 or 7 events or something like that. I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun.
It's a pretty brave thing to do. Most people don't go out and just say, fuck it, no matter how bad I am at this, I'm going to go out and do it. It's a big step to step out on that field and do that.
Yeah. I was nervous.
I bet.
It was fun.
And then when did you realize that there was a pro class that you could? I mean,
pretty quickly after that. So, I mean, that year, my first year, I met a lot of big names. Like, I remember competing my first year and meeting Adrian Wilson, Judd Logan, Andrew Derniet, guys like that, Jason Thomas. So I threw a lot with those guys and talked with them a little bit, and then I started figuring out, there's a higher level and things can get pretty competitive.
Yeah, a little bit of money on the line. It doesn't hurt. That's always fun.
The money's nice.
Yeah. How many games are you into now, like pro class?
I did 10 last year.
That's solid.
I did 10 this year. I should have had 12. Ran into some pretty serious health issues this summer, and then my grandma passed.
Oh, okay.
Grandma Urquhart passed away in the beginning of August. So I had to turn down Detroit, and I also had to turn down Fergus. And I was more like waitlisted for those both. But when you get invited to 2 really big games, it is...
Never been up to Fergus?
I haven't.
Fuck.
No.
That's
and I don't know if I'm gonna get back in, because that's a game where if you're not top 5 or 6, it's hard to get your name in.
Just put your name back on the wait list. That's all you can do. Fergus, next to the Celtic Classic, Celtic is always my favorite games, but Fergus was definitely number 2 on that list, and it was such a fucking shit show the night before. Not in a bad way. I mean, it was like the night before you would go up there, and those people were out of control. Like the beer tent and the pipers, and I mean, I saw things in that beer tent that I don't even want to put out on the podcast because I mean, they were ridiculous, and those people were just a bunch of horned up, drunken bastards who just were out to have a great time. And they were this huge tattoo. And, I remember me and Carrie going up one time, and we were like, they paid us to run this clinic the day before. So Friday we ran this big clinic. They paid us a whole hell of a lot of money. And then we just kind of hung out and watched the tattoo. And these people just, we're drinking. And everyone's having a great time. And they're doing, caber in front of these huge grandstands, and then the games themselves were so perfectly run. Warren Trask ran them, and the athletics were so perfectly run. Like when they needed the trig moved, he would just wave his hand, and like 5 guys would appear. Boom, 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 boom. And all of a sudden, the trig is moved and repainted. I mean, took seconds to get this. He had so many volunteers and such a perfect staff. And
is it just pros there then?
Yeah, it was just pros, but they had Warren. I think they do have an amateur class maybe on Sunday.
Okay.
But the deal was you had to go to the clinic on Friday in order to compete in. That's how it was. You had to go to the clinic on Friday in order to get invited to compete in the amateur competition on Sunday.
Okay.
And Warren made money off them because of the clinic, but it was good because at least a lot of these guys had never had any instruction before, so he had a much better class of athletes.
Oh yeah. I can imagine.
And it wasn't just like him running the clinic. He would bring in me and Carrie, or I think Harrison ran it one year. Harrison and Ryan ran it one year, and just keep putting your name on that one because you definitely want to go to
the Ren Fest up in Michigan a couple weeks ago. I'm like, hey man, kept nudging him with my elbow.
Was Warren up there?
He does. He judges us up there.
Oh no shit.
Yeah. He's a strict judge too.
He's
if you don't get that 12 o'clock in the caber, if you move one tiny inch, he's calling you on it.
Yep.
Who would I beat? I beat Brazina this year in caber up there, and we do 2 rounds of caber. I beat him in one of them. He was so pissed.
Yeah.
Took the challenge flag and threw it at me. Of course, he ended up beating me because he, with his 4th attempt or so, he ended up getting a 12. But
they still do like 2 or 3 cabers up there.
We do a caber, then we have lunch, we come back and we do another caber.
Yeah. I remember because that field, I don't know what it's like now, but that field used to be so small.
Oh, it is.
They would do screwy events. So, and Frank Stazza ran it. And I loved him. He was my brother. He was a fantastic dude. Still is, I'm sure. I haven't seen him in forever, but the field was so small. He had to come up with all these creative ideas to throw. So, like, we threw like a 75-pound hammer one time.
Oh yeah.
And they still throw that?
Yeah, I think they got 2 hammers now. I think the one we threw this year was about 60 pounds.
Yeah, maybe it was a 60-pound hammer.
I ended up winning it. I think I went 38 feet.
Yeah, right.
Which is just picture throwing a hammer 38 feet.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, what the hell.
Yeah, and then we like Braemar Stone. I think we threw the 42 for height.
Well, it's not even a normal Braemar because you're throwing. I mean, I think Frank just finds random rocks on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Jagged edges and whatever, and they weigh usually 30 to 40 pounds, and he's telling you to throw it.
Right.
You can't even tuck the stone. You got to hold it with 2 hands and release with 1 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did 2 stones. We did the weight for height, but he only gives you 2 attempts.
Right.
Instead of 3, and you get points based on whether you clear it on your first or second.
Yeah. And then heavyweight for distance, probably.
Yeah. Oh, but that's so hard because we're throwing uphill and we're throwing in basically a pile of
mud.
mulch.
Right. Yeah. Mulch and mud. Right. I remember winning that one year, and they tell you win, and you have to go get your award, and they freaking presented me to the quote unquote queen.
Oh yeah.
So they bring this fat girl out on a horse, and they're giving me rules like, this is how you have to interact with the queen, and she's gonna put her hand out, and this is how you take her hand, and you have to, and I'm like, are you kidding me? This is like just some weird broad who pretends to be a queen every weekend.
Now we have a mayor.
Okay.
Now we got a mayor, some big old fat dude that comes out, and there's nobody watching us get our awards. It's,
right.
The athlete standing there and the mayor talking in his whatever fake accent, and then Frank gets a kick out of it because he types up exactly what he has to say when he awards us.
Uh-huh.
And so he just comes up with these weird, just corny phrases, and the mayor gets so pissed. But Frank, he loves it.
Frank gives no shits. He does not care. I remember that year I won the award, and then I put it down for some reason, and then I had to do something with the queen, and I turned around and freaking Overfelt had stolen my sword, and it bolted. It already was in his car by the time. I'm like, I can't believe the fucker stole my sword. I didn't even want this thing, but now I really want it because he took it from me. So you did the Renfest. And then was that the end of the season this year for you? Or?
So I did both. There's 2, one in August, one in September. So I did that,
right.
And then I finished out the year. I did Renfest, and then Virginia, and Renfest again, and then I went to
which
St. Louis.
Which Virginia?
VSGs.
You were in Alexandria.
VSGs,
yeah. It's because we threw on Sunday. That's why I didn't see you.
Yeah. I took off Sunday morning real early.
Okay.
I think I was out of town by 7 in the morning.
Yeah, I love Alex's games down there.
Oh yeah, she treats the athletes really well.
She does, and we didn't go there as pros. We would go to Richmond, but I always call it Alexandria. VSG is always the same weekend as Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, the money was just out of control up there.
That's what I heard.
It's good money, man.
It's 2 days of throwing too. If you have a good day.
Yeah, and it's one day of Highland Games, and the next day is these stupid. They call them Irish events. I don't even think they're. I think it was something that Sarge invented. Yeah, Caledonian Championships. And instead of throwing the weight over the bar, you have to hit a plate with the weight, and I mean it was. And you throw there's a 56 and a 28-pound shot put you have to throw, and
sounds horrible.
It's ridiculous. And I always did good on day one when there were events I actually trained for, and the next day you always had gorillas like Darius Slovak come out, and he was a big discus thrower from Poland, and he would win a lot of that shit. Craig was real good at that because he's an ape.
Yeah. Well, you guys had the unlimited approach to the trig, right?
I figured that out though because it was an unlimited approach, and instead of a trig, they would just paint a line on the ground.
Okay.
And then they always marked from the middle. So the rule was it was an unlimited approach, no trig, you just don't go over the line, and they mark for the middle. So what I would do was 3 spins diagonally across the throwing area and throw it off the right sector. And the year I did it, I waited until the last throw, and So I did that and threw it off and everyone's like, "What?" And they measured it from there, and I got like 4 feet on it, and everyone was so pissed off at me. I said, "Hey, you guys should have thought of this."
Well, if there's a game with a hill, you got to throw down the hill.
You got to throw
it
it
on the flat ground.
I used to get in trouble. Celtic Classic would have slopes. Have you been to Celtic yet?
I have not.
It's kind of a crowned hill, so like they.
Well, I've heard for hammers it's kind of hard to throw because you're throwing into a mound.
Unless you're super good, and then you throw over the mound and it goes downhill. Then.
Yeah.
But I would always find like the slope and wait till the last drive to throw down that slope and always move up a couple spots. But yeah, if you're a really good hammer thrower, you can throw over the hill and then it'll crash down the other side. But
yeah.
I always threw right to the side of this hill. You had to be like 105 plus in the heavy hammer to get it over there. That's not me. Yeah. What is your best event?
I'd say probably stones, although I've really struggled with stones lately. So for I want to say the last 2 or 3 years as an amateur, I was over 50, like just
no shit,
constantly over 50. I think my PR is 53, but
that's crazy that you don't have a throwing background and you're able to do that.
It's just stone's something that just came really easily.
Yeah.
Braemar, I'm usually right at between 40, 41 if I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, once
that's
I turned
really
pro,
solid.
like I don't know what happened. I just stopped throwing stones very well.
Yeah.
Or I throw stones really well with the heavier stones, and then I go to a game. So like in Alma, we throw a 20-pound stone, and I always get first or second in the pro division throwing the heavy stone in Alma, and then I go somewhere like Chicago that has this nice 16-pound stone, and I throw it shorter than I throw the 20-pound.
You just get probably so amped up and get
it makes no sense to me. Yeah.
I know sometimes when I get a light stone like that, I got to talk to myself. Say you just got to be patient because you get so amped up, and your upper body gets ahead of the lower body, and then
I think so.
Then it all goes downhill.
Yeah.
So what's the plan for the off season?
I don't know. I kind of just screw around in the weight room for a while. Usually,
you got a place in your house, right?
I do. Oh, actually, not my house. My in-laws. They live about 4 houses down.
Okay.
So I usually take the kids over when I get them from preschool, and then we go over there. They'll watch my kids for a little while, and I work out in their garage. They got a big 3-car garage, and I take up half of the garage with my stuff.
Right.
So usually I just find some different things to work on, some different goals. One year it was, how much could I do in a 3-rep max for dips? How much can I? Last year it was all about like pause deadlifts or front squats off a pinch, just random things that I just like to goof around with. And then usually in January I get a little bit more serious with my training.
Right.
So this year, after getting super sick in July, lost about 20 pounds of body weight.
What happened?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I went on vacation to Hawaii with my family, and I just got deathly ill, just puking.
While you were there, or?
Yeah. Halfway there, we were
goddamn long plane ride home when you're sick.
This boat ride, we went swimming with the sharks, like these 12-foot Galapagos sharks, and they're like at least one person every year, or every time we go on a boat, at least one person gets seasick. And I grew up on a boat. My parents had a sailboat in Sandusky.
Okay.
So we go sailing all summer long. I'm like, I've never been seasick in my life.
Right.
And as soon as we get out there, I just run to the side of the boat and just start vomiting everywhere. So then we get back to land, and I'm just sick as a dog, and I can't get any better. So that lasted about 3 weeks, just horrible. Yeah, so probably should have gone to a doctor, but I just didn't. I don't know.
You're probably contagious right now, you motherfucker.
I don't know what I got. It probably took me at least 2 months just to get even close to my previous body weight.
You must have got something off, some virus or something.
Nobody else got sick in my family, though.
Yeah.
I was the only one. Yeah. So now I'm on this higher volume-ish type training, work with Zach Riley a little bit. I, write something up, and then he kind of says, tweak this here, do that there. So right now I'm trying to hit some higher reps, which for me is anything above 3.
Sure, yeah.
So a lot of 6 to 8 reps or so, and I asked him, when can I stop this? This sucks so much. I hate these high reps. He's like, well, you can stop, these high rep squats when you can squat 600. Well, that's never going to happen, or at least anytime soon. He's like, or when you reach 280.
When your body weight reaches 280?
He's like, when you reach 280, then you're done. I'm like, well, I guess I'll be on this,
What do you weigh now?
Kick forever. About 250. I've been 250 for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
So no matter how much I eat or how little I eat, I stay right in that 250 range.
Right.
Which is kind of where I've settled. So I think I've accepted the fact that I'm this body weight. I'm not trying to get to, some guys in their off season talk about trying to get to 300 pounds. I'm not,
it's so not going to happen. How tall are you?
6'1", 6'2".
Yeah, we were always taught that, mass moves mass. So that, you were force feeding yourself to get up into 300 pounds. And I wish I would have known what I know now when I was actually at a pro, because I would have thrown like 260, and I think I would have been a lot better. Even now, as the season approaches, I kind of increase my food intake, a little bit less cardio, and I'll get up to about 250, 255, and I really feel good.
Okay.
But I was 310, 312, and there was nothing on, that extra weight didn't help me at all.
Yeah.
I think you just need to be heavy enough to counter that 56, and everything else is just wasted, I think.
Yeah. For me, I started the Highland Games, I barely weighed 205.
Wow.
So, I really put in a lot of work eating and lifting to get to where I was, or where I am now. And I don't think I want to do that for the next 10 years.
No. And
to
how old are you?
Bigger. 33.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And if you're throwing well too, Alistair Gunn did it at like 225, so
he wasn't a big guy.
No, not at all.
I think a lot of pros these days it's almost switching gears. So I think your time when you were throwing as a pro, there was a lot of guys in that 300 range.
Yeah.
And I think now it's actually kind of going back down.
Yes.
And there's a lot more guys between 240 and 280 or so.
I talked to Nate and Johnny Pills about that, and I said how you guys look a lot different than we did, and I think that has a lot to do with the guys when we came into the sport. Ryan Vera was the best guy in the world, and he preached you got to get heavy, and he was not built very well. He was, not to speak badly of Ryan. Ryan was one of the best throwers that ever lived, but he was not a healthy individual. He was way overweight and, would routinely eat a box of, Eskimo pies, like just all by himself, just eat the whole box. I watched that guy pass out while he was eating one time. We were at a famous Dave's, and it was me and KO and Andrew and Ryan and a bunch of other people, and Summer was there, and Ryan's perched up against the wall, just belly hanging out, and he ate this. They bring you, I don't know if they still do this at famous days, they used to bring you like a garbage can lid filled with barbecue if you got this big meal, and he ate the whole fucking thing, and he was passed out against the wall, and then someone said, "Oh, I can't eat the rest of this," and he immediately woke up and he said, "Pass it on down here." And then he was eating it, and as he was eating it, he would take a mouthful, and then he would fall asleep, and he'd wake back up, and he'd take another mouthful, and we're like, "Wow, this is what we got to do to be a pro, I guess." I haven't seen Ryan in years. I hope he lost some of that. But that being said, the motherfucker, he could throw like he was the most athletic cat.
He threw far.
Yeah,
it worked for him.
He could do anything, and any event, whether it was throwing a regular shot put, or we would have chair throwing competitions after Celtic. He would always win. He just won everything. He was just super athlete. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. You guys are a lot more athletic looking than we were, for sure.
I don't even feel that way. Like, I walk up to some of these guys at a competition, and I feel like I don't even fit in. Like, I don't even look like I lift compared to some of these dudes.
Right.
Some of them are pretty jacked.
Well, standing next to Andy or something. Andy's a gorilla.
I feel like a child next to him.
Right. He's on our. He's super quiet about it, but he's on our. He's on my online training program, and every once in a while he'll send me results of something. I'm just so psyched for the dude, man. He's like, "This is great," So I've been trying to get him on the podcast. I got to get down there to Texas and get him on the show one of these days. But
that'd be good.
I love him. Andy's one of my favorite people. You got to catch him up in
Detroit, then. He usually goes to Detroit every year.
I was supposed to go this year, but I got invited to Dublin.
Okay.
And I can't remember what we were doing something, but I couldn't get up there and then back down for Dublin. So, but I think next year I'm gonna try to get up there if I don't get down to Texas before then.
Yeah. Do you ever think about coming to Alma? Craig and KO made their appearance this year. Craig, KO, Chapin.
Yeah, I heard about it too late. I heard about that we were getting the band back together, I guess. But
that'd be a hell of a podcast if you guys. Well, you guys already did the one with the three.
Yeah, we're probably gonna do it again. Carrie's coming up here, and he's coming up here. By the time this comes out, this will already done. But he's coming up for the Swiss conference. It's a big seminar up in Ontario, and me and Carrie, and I think Judd Logan's coming up, and the three of us are going to go up there together. But I'll get Carrie at least on the podcast, and
I can listen to him for hours.
He's such a fucking idiot. I love him to death. That he's got stories, and That's how he got me to do everything. If we were going to do something crazy, he'd say, Valenti, this will make a great story. You tell everybody about it. I was like, oh, shit. Yeah, I guess we got to go do this. And
it was great. Him and Craig were the announcers last week at St. Louis.
Right.
Oh, my God, they were a riot. They had fans and the athletes just rolling on the ground, just dying the whole day.
Yeah, they were always really good at that. And I remember towards the end of Wisconsin games, Craig was doing more announcing than he was throwing, and he was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important you get an announcer who's been around the block. Steve Pulcinella is one of the best announcers out there. No one ever hires him for anything, but that
he does,
guy.
He does Fairhill usually.
Does he still do Fairhill?
He'll do Fairhill. So I did Fairhill last year, and again this year. This year he was at a powerlifting competition, I think, somewhere in Jersey. But yeah, he came out and did our Fairhill games last year, and oh my God, he's hilarious.
Yeah, he is, and the
fans
whole time love him.
And he's just making fun of us.
Right.
This skinny bastard, if he'd fucking eat something,
right.
He'd throw farther, talking about me. And all this stuff.
I threw there with Gregor Edmonds one time, and he was calling him Scabio because instead of Fabio, because Gregor was always had all these girls hanging around him wherever he went, and so he ended up, because he was, saying he had a venereal disease, so he was calling him Scabio on the mic, and I remember Gregor he just went off that day. He was well over 90 feet in the weight, and he threw a 60-foot stone put, and he hit his last stone put, and it was 60 feet, and his kilt fell off. And then Pulcinella just had the crowd just so amped up. They were screaming for him, and he did a really good job. It was always fun when he was there, but yeah, it's a good time. So you're gonna take this off season, get ready to go for next year, and what's the first games up next year?
It'll be Fairhill again.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah, May, right?
Fairhill's one of those really good games. If you do well and you fit in with the guys, they'll bring you back every year.
Who runs it now?
Oh, crap. What's his name? I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah.
Can't remember the Scottish guy. Can't remember his name now for some reason. I don't know.
I can't remember the guy who used to run its name either. He was a great guy. I feel bad I can't remember his name, but he ended up passing away. I remember his wife's name was Mary Ann, but he was one of these old time guys where once you were in, you just kept getting invited back. I
got quite a few games like that, which are pretty nice.
I can see how some people might think it's not fair if you're a new pro coming up and you're really good, but it's a good old boy system in the best possible way, because if you are cool to these athletic directors and you don't act like a prick, they'll take care of you. And if you have a year where you're injured and you feel like shit and you call them and say, hey, I'm hurt, 9 times out of 10 you're going to get the invite back next year, just because you've treated them right, and it's a mutual respect thing. And
well, that's how grandfather worked this year. So I got invited on the grandfather after Zach Riley hurt his bicep.
Right.
So, and I was talking to Kenny down there, and talking to him about Zach coming back. He's like, "Oh yeah, he's fine. He's coming back next year.
Yeah.
He's good with us." And then Bo Fay usually goes down to grandfather, and Bo couldn't come this year. His wife had to do something important or whatever, and so he stayed home to support his wife. And talking to Kenny, he's like, "Oh yeah, that's fine. Family comes first.
Yeah.
Take care of your family. The Highland Games are going to be here. You're going to come back. There's no issues."
Yeah, and that's what I had gotten, and I won't mention the guy's name, but I had gotten so irritated at one games one time because this guy called me one year, and it was last minute, and I knew when you're a pro, you're a young pro, you get called last minute, you go. If you want to ever get into that games, just go. So it was like 2 days before the event, he calls me, I'm like, yep, I'll be there. Drove like 8 hours down to this games, went to it, competed. Next year I never got the invite back, and like a week out from the games this time, he's like, hey, so-and-so's out. Do you want to come down? I was like, well, yeah, I was planning on, I never got the invite, but yeah, I'll be there. Third year, he did invite me back again. And I was like, fuck this guy, man. I dropped everything to come. I've never had that happen before to me at a games and it wasn't like, I knew how to behave with athletic directors. It wasn't like he just was just using me as an athlete to be down there, and
that would suck.
Yeah, I was really pissed off at the guy. I think he's still running that games, but hey, whatever. I get it, but I certainly had never tried to get back into that game. It's like I'll go somewhere else,
I think as a pro, like I'm not one of the top level pros. I'm not a Zach Riley or a Spencer Tyler. So
right.
for me, I have to be on really good behavior. I got to talk to the
Sure.
ADs, interact with the crowd. I got to be, the really good guy.
Yeah.
And as long as the athletes and everybody likes you, then you're fine.
Yep.
So I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned as a pro now is, interacting with others and doing all that sort of stuff. Really
being
goes
an
a long
entertainer.
way. Yeah.
Being an entertainer.
I told the guys last year when I was getting my butt whipped, I'm here to make you guys look better.
You're right.
When I throw, I think I PR'd in the lightweight last year, and then guys are still passing me up by like 5 or 10 feet.
Yeah.
I'm just helping them out.
It'll build. You
Yeah.
keep plugging away at it. Get your body back to where you feel good again, and
It's getting there.
Yeah, you'll. How old are your kids too?
I got my oldest son will be 5 in November, so in about a month and a half from now or so.
So that's a lot of energy too, with 2 under 5.
Yeah, so I got 5, and then my youngest will be 3 in January.
Yeah.
And then we have a baby girl due in 1 month in November. So
Congratulations!
Thank you. It's going to be an absolutely crazy house.
Yeah,
so
that's
finding time
tough,
to train
man.
is going to be really hard once this third one comes around.
Yeah, I just have one, and when he was born, it was really, really rough because it's a lot of energy. You're putting forth a lot of energy, and your training just can go to shit. You know,
Yeah.
I can't imagine 3. That's
Well, my thing. I feel worse if I take time away from the family to train.
Sure.
So like I'm lifting in the garage, and they have a glass door in my in-laws' house, and they're watching me through the glass door. And usually, I might get through my 2 or 3 big exercises, and accessories come around, and I'm like, screw it. I don't need to do bicep curls. I'll just go out and, we'll ride bikes or go for a walk or go to the playground or something.
But you know what? The other thing is it comes back down to the stories they'll have about you when they're older, and they'll remember that shit, and they'll remember it fondly. Not that, oh, Dad couldn't take me to the park right now, because they'll remember you out there training, and they'll tell their kids about it, and it'll all be about the stories. They'll remember that in a good way.
My oldest now, he'll come out and he'll sit with me.
Yeah.
So between sets we'll talk or something, and he'll sit with me out there every once in a while if it's warm outside.
Yeah.
Or I'll have him do like pull-ups or chin-ups or just play around with stuff. So now he sees working out as a fun activity, something enjoyable. So I'm hoping that when he's older, he views that physical activity the same way. Because some kids, like I teach phys ed, and trying to get my students into the weight room and to do something, it's like pulling teeth.
That's interesting. Because phys ed has changed so rapidly and so completely over the years, and we've had 2 other, maybe 1 other. Megan McKee was in here, who's a phys ed instructor. What do you try to do with them as opposed to what you're allowed to do with them? Do you have some say in how you work with these kids?
I have a lot of say. I think I can do a lot of things, and nobody's coming into my classroom and telling me I need to teach this sport, or I need to teach this physical activity, or I need to do points a certain way. Nobody's telling me anything like that. So I pretty much have free reign in what I'm doing. I'm sure if I piss somebody off or get a kid hurt, then I'll have somebody watching.
Yeah.
But as far as things go right now, I have a lot of opportunity to do
Public or private school?
It's a public school.
Okay.
East Cleveland.
Okay.
Wow,
that's a little bit.
It's a rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo!
We get into it sometimes, but I don't know where I'm going with this, but.
Well, I was asking you basically what you're allowed to do. I look at a lot of physical ed, like I would go out and throw, or like when I was a strength coach at Amherst High School, here, local high school, I would see the track, or the phys ed teacher was a friend of mine out there, and he's got his whole class walking around the track at this slow pace, and he was so frustrated that
that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that was basically all he could do with them, or he was going to get letters from parents, and
I'm not. Well, if the parents would contact me, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, right.
If they could actually answer their phones when I have issues with their kids, I would love that.
Yeah, well, Amherst is such a white bread, suburban community. Yeah.
So yeah, like my phys ed class, Mondays and Wednesdays we're playing a sport. I spend about 2 to 3 weeks on different sports. Tuesdays is track days. We have an indoor track where I teach, so that's nice. But to get kids to run, oh my God, nobody's running. So now they walk.
Yeah.
And it's the slowest, most pathetic walk you've ever seen, but that's the most activity I can get out of them.
Yeah.
Thursdays we go to the weight room, and half the boys want to throw dumbbells at each other. The girls want to check their cell phones or take selfies, and then the other group of boys just wants to do curls. So what I started doing is I put everybody in a squat rack, and I'll say, you're squatting today.
Yeah.
You're going to squat for 45 minutes, and you will not do anything else.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do. You will squat for 45 minutes, and I don't give the option of doing anything else because it's not productive.
Right. I used to remember when Kennedy wrote the article, and I was just made aware of the article by Joel Woods, who's a buddy of mine who's been on the show, The Soft American. I don't know if you ever read that, but it was him in the 60s talking about how if we don't fix our physical education programs, that we're going to turn into this nation of weak people. And there was a big surge.
We're a bunch of pussies
now. And it looked like something out of the CrossFit Games. You had guys going, doing ring gymnastics and all these calisthenics and going over walls and obstacle courses. And I mean, I really think it's imperative that we bring that back to schools, and it's pass or fail. You either do it or you fail,
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, our kids, they need to take 2 semesters of phys ed to graduate at our school.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
They can play a varsity sport and get out of 1 semester. They can do marching band. I still think they need to be in phys ed.
Sure.
Absolutely. And
not just because I need a job,
but because they need to be physically active. These kids, all they do is play video games. That's all they do all day long. They come to my class and they talk about nothing but video games and this and that. And nobody's physically active anymore. Nobody moves. Their work capacity is next to nothing.
Well, and it's a healthcare crisis too, right? These kids grow up with no ability and no knowledge of how to get in shape or stay in shape, and it becomes a burden. We're talking about, socialized medicine in this country, and, I don't have a problem with that necessarily, but I think one of the things you have to do is change the mindset of the population that they need to actually take care of themselves, so I don't have to take care of you, financially.
Yeah. I just think, these kids, they live inside a bubble almost.
Right.
And they just need to experience other things. Like it was pretty eye-opening when I first got there. I used to teach over here on the west side of Cleveland. It's a little bit more diverse. Now on the east side, it's, pretty much one.
You're the only white person in the school.
Yeah, I'm the only white boy. Or they'll be like, I'll be like, where's so-and-so taking attendance? They're like, who's that? I'm like, the white boy.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to point us out. We stand out very easily. But it was culture shock, like coming here and like cutting open a avocado to put in my lunch, and the kids are looking at me like, why is your apple so disgusting?
No
I'm like,
shit.
what the hell? What do you mean an apple? I'm like, this is an avocado.
Right.
They don't see these things. These kids are coming to class and their breakfast every single day is a bag of hot Cheetos or hot fries.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, come on.
I just posted a video this morning. My wife posted it first. She's actually going to go through this guy's seminar, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he's a doctor. And he got amped up in the video. He started off and he was basically saying, that he was a fat kid growing up, and his mother was from India, and they didn't have anything in India. When they came to the United States, all these supermarkets were available, and she was a very doting mother and waited on him and wanted to please him, and so she would add honey to his milk, and every cereal he could possibly want was in the house, and he just got fatter and fatter and fatter. And he said, my mother didn't know any better, but we do now, and when you're doing this to your kid, it's child abuse.
Yeah.
You're feeding them this trash every day. You're taking them to McDonald's every day. We had a kid here in our sports performance program who, one of my coaches asked him, what does he eat? Because he's way too heavy. And, we go out to eat every night. We don't have any real food in the house. And, they're not going to some fancy steakhouse. No. They're going to shit. They're, they're eating Burger King every night.
It's cheap.
You're poisoning your children. You're just poisoning them.
I ask these kids in my classes. I also teach 2 health classes. I got 3 phys ed and 2 health classes every day, and I ask them, how many times a week do you eat fast food? And every hand goes up for at least once a week.
Yeah.
And that's insane. Like they're like, how often do you eat fast food, Mr. Yu? I'm like, maybe once a month if I'm on the road traveling and I'm starving. Like I'm not going to get fast food every day.
Yeah.
There's so much better options out there.
I haven't since I started when I retired from throwing 2013. That was really the last time I had like a fast food cheeseburger. I was like, okay, I'm losing the weight, and I never went back. My son, I don't know if you've seen any videos of him throwing, but he he has lived the Spartan lifestyle. He doesn't know any different.
Yeah.
He's we've actually had to bring my first wife and I are divorced, and we actually had to kind of bring his mother into the fold and say,
Okay.
this is the way we're going to raise this kid. But from the time he was able to walk, I tell the story where I would have this 8-pound medicine ball on my couch, and I would just knock the medicine ball on the floor, and he would walk over in diapers and pick it up like an atlas stone, put it on the couch, and I would just knock it off again. He would do that
sounds
over and
amazing.
over for hours, and he never ate any shit food. He's been and now when you see him in comparison to his friends, people ask me, what the hell? Why does he look like this? And he does. He looks like he's on some kind of drug. I mean, he's got abs and shoulders and pecs, and
that's the way he should be because he's
that's
physically
exactly right. It's no different than having a kid on the farm. That's the way farm kids used to look,
Well, he's learning these things now. When he's 40 or 50 years old, he's not going to try to adapt a new lifestyle.
Right.
I talk to my students. When you're 40 years old and you get diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, it's going to be nearly impossible for you to change your eating habits and your exercise habits.
Right.
If you start now, it's going to be a normal routine for you. It's going to be so much easier, and you may even prevent that type 2 diabetes or whatever you got going on.
Keep your feet,
your
absolutely. Foot doesn't fall
I ask
off.
them, how many of you know someone with diabetes? Every hand goes up.
Sure.
How many of you know someone that's had an amputation? Every hand goes up.
Yeah.
My grandpa got type 2 diabetes when he was 60. He's going to be 91 in November. He's got all his feet, all his toes. He's still kicking, doing a great job. My dad got type 2 diabetes when he was about 60. So in my
just
family,
shitty.
Not even my grandpa and my dad were not big guys.
Right.
But I think a lot of it's just genetic predisposition. So pretty much no matter what I'm doing when I'm about 60, I'm probably going to get type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
So I just need to be smart and live healthy now, and maybe I can prolong it till I'm 70 or something.
Sure, right.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's an epidemic in this country, and I don't see any end in sight. I just see us getting, because whether you like it or not, and I don't like CrossFit as a entity because they're horrible. But the functional fitness movement started by CrossFit is the best thing that's happened fitness-wise to this country, because it's gotten so many more people up and moving and doing the things they need to and eating properly and moving and lifting weights and running and rowing, and it's and you see these women. It's the best thing I think that's happened to women if they embrace it, because the women I follow on Instagram aren't these stick figure models.
Nobody wants a stick figure anymore.
No, it's Brooke Ents and Stacy Tovar, and they're jacked to the tits and abs, and it's like this is the way you could look if you're healthy. You're not heroin chic looking, and 60 pounds and 5'8". It's the best thing that could happen. I hope more people embrace it. I hope CrossFit doesn't shoot themselves in the foot and screw this whole thing up. But it's a movement that I think is really changing the country, and I hope it continues. And it doesn't have to be, CrossFit No Mercy down the street, but go talk to your Sean Urquharts and learn how to lift weights properly.
I think a lot of it's culture. Like my wife is from China. She came over when she was a little girl, and about probably 8 years ago or so, we went over to China to visit her hometown where she grew up, and we spent about a month there. And our fridge was almost always empty because every single morning we went to the market and we bought our food, and we didn't ride in a car to get our food. We either walked or other people were riding their bikes or whatever. And the amount of obese people that I saw over there was next to none.
Yeah.
Because it's just totally different culture, and everything is fresh and made that day or that morning or whatever. And
was she like in a smaller village, or
when she first grew up, she lived in a really small village. I might be getting the story wrong, but I'm pretty sure she told me like no electricity, no running water, like very, very poor.
Yeah.
And they were able to earn some money and get some better job opportunities, and they moved to a bigger city, southeastern part of China, before she finally came over here when she was about 8 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, she came over, she spoke no English or nothing.
Yeah.
They put her right in 4th grade, and she was great at math.
Yeah.
Universal subject, but everything else I know she struggled with. But going back to eating healthy and culture, like I think her first time experiencing mashed potatoes in the school cafeteria, to her it looked like ice cream.
Oh,
so
God,
she goes
that's
to eat
a
the mashed
switch.
potatoes, and she's like, God, this ice cream tastes terrible. What is wrong with this? She thought she was eating vanilla ice cream.
Right.
It was mashed potatoes with gravy.
It would be amazing to bring someone over who has never eaten the shit Americans eat before and just like, what is this? What are you putting in your face?
Well, even their fast food restaurants are different. Like their Pizza Hut does not serve the pizza that we eat over here. It was slightly different. Different ingredients or toppings and things. But, just as a culture, it was.
You stayed over there for a month. That's pretty amazing.
It was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had to learn to squat when I shit in public. So I think I went like 2 whole weeks before I had to finally do that in public. Like at the house that they had nice restrooms and it was more westernized, but there was there's parts of this country where you might go to a somewhere out in the city and you don't have an option.
Wow.
So that was hard.
Yeah.
The language barrier, it's just whatever. It's like being at her parents' house right now, so they just speak their dialect of Mandarin in the house.
Right. Have you picked any of it up?
No, I just don't listen. It's like static noise in the background to me. The only thing I just hear, Sean and blah 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 blah. Like what do they say about me? Like all they said, you need to stop eating, you're fat. So, yeah.
Yeah, I dated a Colombian girl in college, and it drove me nuts. But I would start picking shit up little by little because I knew when her and her mother were talking, her mother didn't like me very much. And,
they hated me for a while.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if hate's a strong word. I don't think they didn't hate me, but I mean, there was a long period of time when we first started dating because she's the oldest child where it was like, you're with this white guy, but you're not going to marry this white guy.
They expected her to marry a Chinese guy, I would assume.
And I stuck around and I just dealt with all their crap. And they actually had a Chinese restaurant over there in Elyria for years off of South Abbey. And
I know where that is.
Number One Kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd go over there on the weekends and I'd come home from college and I'd work behind the counter answering phones and taking orders. And they started, warming up to me a little bit. And, yeah.
Well, that's a big deal. That's gonna sound racist as fuck, but we have a great Chinese restaurant here in town, and they have these young, American English-speaking girls who actually take the orders. So it's so much easier to place your order with them, and
I heard that all the time.
Tons of money. The place is packed. All the waiters are American.
Like, yeah, of course I speak English. I'm like, oh, this is so nice.
It's the best of both worlds, right? Because you can order the food and then you get the actual good Chinese food, and it's just so much better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now that I've offended the entire American Chinese speaking population, but so let's close this out. We're getting ready for next season. You'll start off in Fair Hill.
Yep.
And you've got a full schedule for next year?
I hope so. I'll probably start sending out all my data or emails or contacts, whatever, and probably here in the next month or so. But hopefully I do Fair Hill and then Alma. June's always busy. Georgetown, Ontario.
Oh, good. You go up to Georgetown. I used to love that.
This year's my first time up in Georgetown, and it was a lot of fun.
I love Georgetown. Yeah. Big Jean still run that. Jen. I always call her Jen Patterson.
Too, so I don't know if she's going to be involved.
She's running it still. She's in Virginia now.
Somewhere south. I don't know.
Because I was in Virginia for the games, and I come out of the Porta-John, and she's like, Mark, and I'm like, and you don't. It doesn't register because she doesn't belong. I only saw her in Canada, and I hadn't seen her in years. And I'm like, what in the hell are you doing here?
Just moved, yeah.
Yeah, but she's going back up to run it. Yeah,
okay, that'll be good. So I'll be going back there hopefully. What else? Ohio Scottish Games, Alaska. I'm hoping to get into again this year. I did Alaska last year.
It's a great game,
which was amazing,
isn't it?
But they changed it to where they do pro men one year and then pro women. I say that in quotation marks. They should be treated like pros.
They should be, yeah. I tried to get that work and it didn't work.
Well, they're doing it in Alaska, and I think it worked really well.
Good.
From what I saw.
There's no reason why they shouldn't get paid.
Yeah.
No reason.
So we'll see if I get to do that one again, and then Grandfather Mountain and a couple other ones in August. So I might, with the new baby coming and having 3 kids, it might be time to cut down on a few games.
At least you're putting money in the bank, though.
That's what I tell my wife.
Yeah. It's not like you're playing rec league softball.
No. And if I was working a part-time job somewhere in the summer, I don't know if I'd be making that much more money.
Hell no.
Anyways.
I don't think you'd be making that much money.
I wouldn't be as enjoying myself.
Right. Especially the better you get, the more money you make.
Yeah. This year was a lot better. Yeah.
By the end of my career, I always say this: I would not go anywhere unless I was guaranteed either a car payment or a mortgage payment, and I was always closer to that mortgage payment. But I wasn't driving anywhere. If I wasn't getting at least that.
Yeah.
But. Yeah, that's the best summer job I ever had, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Well, we'll close this down. You need to come up here and train a little bit this.
I've heard that quite a few times.
I can't believe you're this close and you haven't been up here training. We need some people in our training group, you know.
I'm kind of a loner, though. Practice in my
You'll
backyard.
love it. I've trained my whole Highland Games career by myself, but now you get up here, you get people to train with. And
I saw your gym. I definitely need to come check it out.
Yeah, get in here with the meatheads, and we'll get after it.
Definitely.
All right, brother. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck this year. See ya.
Thank you.